We're now going to do activity B using the distance formula. Again, if you can get into Gizmos, you might want to do this, but you don't need it. And so the video is to help you through. Even if you're using Gizmos, you might need help. So you want to get it ready if you're using it and turn off everything except show value. So Lana and Tim live in a part of town where the street form a grid. The general location of their houses is shown on the grid to the right. Each unit on the grid represents 1 mile. Tim drives directly south and then directly west to get to Lana's house. Sketch this path on the grid to the right. So they already posted the points. I'm going to go ahead and say where the points are. If we are counting by ones, then this is 1 or 2, 2. And this is Tim right here. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So 5, 7. We might need that later. So they're going directly this way. And we can draw our triangle either at the bottom or the top. Go ahead and do it here. This is a right triangle. So we do have the option of using the Pythagorean theorem, but we're going to use the distance formula. So just so you know, this is 1, 2, 3 here, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so if we were asked what the slope was, the slope is, the measure of the slope is equal to 5/3. You have that just in case. So we've drawn this, and it says how many miles in each direction does he drive? Well, going this way is 5, and going this way is 3, okay? And we haven't figured this out yet. So Tim's coordinate, which they did ask about, or ordered pair, the coordinates, Tim's is 5, 7, and Lana's 2, 2. Now, a crow flies along a straight line from Lana's house to Tim's house. Sketch a path on the grid above to show the crow's path. The crow's path is right here. Select Show Triangle to check your work, and so then you'll do that on Gizmos. What type of figure do all 3 paths make? Okay, not sure what 3 paths they're talking about, but these are right. This is a right triangle. So no matter which way you go and you draw it, it's a right triangle. Maybe they're talking about 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then let's see, this way, and then so we went here, and then we go there. So that must be the 3 paths. Use the Pythagorean theorem to find the distance the crow flies to the nearest 100. Show your work. Okay, so first we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. So to use the Pythagorean theorem, we would use, this would be, let's make this A, let's make this B, and let's make this C. So I can do 3 squared plus 5 squared equals C squared. 9 plus 25 equals, and then we have C squared. And 9 plus 25 is 34, and that equals C squared. You want to undo a square, remember you take the square root. Some people say divide, which is correct, but it's a special type of division. It's a division where your 2 factors are the same. So we'd use the square root. So the square root of 34 equals the square root of C squared. Okay, so C equals the square root of 34. Now, for the advanced students, this inside would be 2 times 17, which is both prime numbers, so you could not simplify this further. You would put this in your calculator and get an approximation. We're going to do that later. So then it says use the distance formula to find the nearest 100. And then use the distance formula to find the distance the crow flies. And then it says to the nearest 100th because you put it in your calculator. So we're just going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase what I last did. Okay, so we've erased what we did before, and then we're going to try using the distance formula. So again, instead of using y, we're going to say that the distance equals the square root of. Now I'm going to stack these, and because these numbers are bigger, I'm going to put this on top. I'm going to stack them up here. I'm going to say 5/7, and then I'm going to say 2, and then 2. And so when I go ahead and I subtract the columns, remember this is x and this is y. So it's going to be 5 minus 2 is 3, and 7 minus 2 is 5. Here's the x's and here's the y. I'm going to use this as my x2, and this is my x1. So we're going to do 5 minus 2 squared plus, and then we're going to do 7 minus 2, and we have 7 minus 2 squared. It's a little squiggly. My pad's starting to die. Let's hope it lasts. So now we go ahead and we do this. 5 minus 2 is 3. So D equals the square root of 3 squared plus 7 minus 2 is 5. 5 squared. Looks familiar, doesn't it? And then we're going to do D equals the square root of, and then we have 9 plus 25. So D equals the square root of, and this is 34. And again, I can't simplify that any further. I can get an approximation in the calculator. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to go ahead and check our answers for A, B, and C here. And so we went ahead and we drew our grid just like this. And then we went ahead and we commented, he drives 5 miles south and 3 miles west. And then what are the coordinates of each house? And we said Tim's were 5, X equals 5, Y equals 7, and then we got Lana with the 2 equals 2. And then it says, what type of figure do all 3 paths make? And we said it was a right triangle. So now we use the Pythagorean theorem to find the distance, and we did 3 squared plus 5 squared equals c squared, 9 plus 25 equals c squared, and we got 34 equals c squared, and if you put that in a calculator, you get approximately 5.83 equals c. So the crow flies about 5.83 miles. Less than 6 miles, more than 5.5 miles. And then we use the distance formula. So we put our numbers in. You'll notice that I did it backwards from this, and I want to show you that we get the exact same answer. We got 9 plus 25. And why does that happen? Because this is a -3, and -3 times -3 is still 9. And this one right here is a -5, and -5 times -5 still equals 25. So it didn't matter which way you turned them as long as you were consistent. And then again, we got D equals the square root of 34, and we got the same answer. Which method do you find easier? Well, I personally like the Pythagorean theorem, but there are times when this is actually a better idea, especially when I don't want to find the sides. And so I explained myself. The answers will vary. Some of you will like this always, and some of you will like this always. Suppose Lana can get to Carl's house by driving 2 miles north and 2 miles east. Use the distance formula to find the length of the straight path the crow flies from Carl's house to Tim's house to the nearest 100. Show your work in the space at the right, then check your answer. So you need to go back at your graph and look at that, and you will discover that Carl's house is at 4. So you want to use the number for Tim's house at 5, 7, and these are the 2 coordinates that you're going to use. So go ahead and pause the video and you figure it out. I would recommend you do it both ways with the Pythagorean theorem and the distance formula, just so you can check your answer. So pause the video now. Okay, so here we are. So let's see. This is Tim's house at 5, 7, and Carl's house is at 4, 4. So if you're going to use the Pythagorean theorem, you would have to see the picture. So this is why the distance formula can be beneficial, because I can do it with just the 2 points. And if I make this my second and this my first, I would do it this way. And just to point out, I like to always look ahead. These numbers are bigger. So I actually do mine as distance equals the square root of, and then I do 5 minus 4 squared plus, and then I do 7 minus 4 squared. And you'll notice I'm going to get the same answer as they do, because this is 1. So it's going to be equal to the square root of 1. I'm sorry, the square. It is going to be equal to the square of 1. So 1 squared plus, and this is 3. So I'm going to get 3 squared. And if I do it this way, I get the exact same answer, because 1 squared equals 1 and 3 squared equals 9. And when we add these together, we get 10, and the D equals the square root of 10. And when you put in your calculator, it is approximately 3.16. So you can say the crow flies about 3.16 miles, which is just a little over 3 miles. I hope you're having fun with this. If you have any questions, message your teacher, and we can always give you some extra help.